Yeah, so
I have this like this. That's the last screen.
oh, because I think what it is
But I
it's doing presenter view.
Right, but I just put it in that view for myself.
Yeah.
See, it should. Here, if you do this, it's like it should be. It's not.
It's choosing the wrong.
It's not.
Wrong screen for the presenter view.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I mean, I don't. It's not a big deal. I don't. Right.
Oh.
That's been clicked on this system, and it's showing the right thing here. It's just not showing the same screen on both of these. I did click that button though. That's how I got this to show up on this screen. Right. It's just not showing the same thing. Because if you right, if you start this show. I just did this. No, it's still not letting me. I just did it. Here, I just did it on here. It's working.
Then
But see, look, but I'm doing this, and it's not here. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
here, what if you just do? Like,
Wait, see, now.
come on, say.
Really? Way to go, Bluetooth.
So what if you need the speaker notes, right?
No, I have my notes here.
Oh, okay.
I just want
So
to
maybe if you just
How do I marry this?
here, if you just
I thought it was set up here. Display.
what if you just present like?
That's what I'm doing. See, this is how you present, and it shows. Right, it's just not showing the same thing on that one, and I do not know why.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
It was a minute ago though.
I guess there's a confusion between primary screen and secondary screen.
Yeah.
You can go to display settings and change the primary screen to this.
Oh, in
this one and secondary screen.
Bluetooth settings. Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to find.
We were trying.
Just if you look up settings, if you search for settings, I think. I haven't used modern.
No, these are files that are open right now. You should be able to go here. Maybe you should let me go first because I just had that screen on and I know that.
Go for it.
We just did this, and these are all files we have open right now. And I think they're showing actual settings for this, which was on the left.
It's not gonna work. Let's see here.
We apologize. No, I don't. I'm slightly confused because I know I have used the settings on this before. Unless I was.
We could just do the like the. It's okay if it's small.
I mean, yeah, I don't care if it's a smaller one. It just is kind of ridiculous that it's not.
Yeah, it's surprising that it's still set.
I know. It's.
You can ask if there's anyone who's aware of the system to find settings.
Does anyone
Where's Weasel? Has it disappeared now?
Does anyone know where the settings is in Ubuntu? It's hidden. It's not showing up for some reason.
Settings on
our settings disappeared.
Yeah, you search for settings, it doesn't show up.
These
Or
are
display.
all
What about display?
right? Tell me I'm not crazy. I remember using the settings that I was using before, or like on my system. There is a settings. I mean, I can use the other thing. It's fine. I don't. I can also, send the file to someone else if this is not working. I've never had that before on this system.
No, I know. I've never had that happen either. Usually,
I usually am able. This is very.
yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. It's
Yeah,
showing up.
it's not on here. That's what I just asked if I can just send it to someone else. This is really weird.
Yeah, you can use what kind of slides you show it. So
It's
You
in
have
Impress in LibreOffice Suite Impress.
do I have Libra installed on this machine?
I mean, I can also present it the way it is on there. I really don't.
Let's just try that, I guess. I know it's
Yeah. Okay. Microsoft, you said? I'm fine with any other one.
the LibreOffice.
LibreOffice.
This is a
What is it? What's the settings? Daily?
I don't have LibreOffice.
What I was gonna try.
you can take your computer back. I think I didn't have time to set it up. So. I didn't have time to set it up.
Oh, you're gonna mirror it that way.
Yeah, I'll try if they made it actually respect the keyboard shortcuts. Of course, they did not.
So
No.
what I can do is like
Can you mirror it again? I think I saw something on the.
if you make it do the presenter view, I can zoom in on that camera.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can
that's
zoom using
fine.
string.
Yeah, we can do this. Okay.
Type in.
I mean, we can. Okay.
It's like the last thing.
Okay. Otherwise, it's pulled up on here if this doesn't work.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah, I've had this set up mirroring screens before. I'm not sure what's going on right now, but we'll just do it this other way. It's fine.
How do we switch the input on this?
What Ubuntu is this? Or?
So I'm not sure it was multiple. I think it's.
How come Mike's? How do I set source? Or how do I set the source from there?
We should have let these others first.
Yeah, maybe we should have something.
I don't know if it disappeared. Oh, down there.
Yeah,
Trying
I
to get
should ask
Is
him.
my computer. Trying to get to my
Yeah,
computer
none of
from,
the, there's no settings on this system for some reason. They've disappeared from the system between last. Yeah,
I'm trying to
so
present
there's
from
no
her,
way
like,
to actually mirror the other screen.
which
I don't know
computer
if
do
you
you
want
have
to
it
present when we figure this
This-
out, or
this
we're
one.
just gonna zoom
HDMI.
You can zoom
Yeah.
in on it. There's the settings literally disappeared off the system.
Yeah, they actually says you have to reinstall it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is never. I mean, I could go now.
Yeah, switch with you.
Well, here we almost
What?
got this.
Well, do we are wait. What?
So, yeah, there we go.
If you want to do this,
What I'm
that's
going to do is I'm going to zoom in on the.
No.
No, no. Let's have and we can then you can put yours on the like an extra and then we'll use our set about.
All right. Yeah.
You want me to give it to who?
Well, we'll just set up my machine. You can put your.
You want me to email it to you or something with that?
What is it? What is
It's
it?
in LibreOffice Impress.
I don't think I have that on here, but we
Can
can
you
make it work
print
out.
the PDF?
Can I print the PDF? I print it here. I'm
No, you
gonna
just use
save
the
it as
print dialog and save as
Oh,
PDF.
yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. I'm like, wait. Yes.
Next question is, do I have a? Anyway, we'll work it out.
Okay.
Good. Emily, do print.
Yeah. No.
All right. I need to plug in. The battery is not.
Oh,
You can it. Oh, I looked it up. You
Yep.
can actually
You have
use.
USB-C? No, maybe.
Like right here. It's right here. The power over. Okay, so do we have HDMI in?
No, I'm just saying, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Flat cable.
I keep looking at that. I'm just concerned we
Okay. So take that. Yeah. That's not gonna break the stream. But at this point, it doesn't really matter to the stream. Or I mean, like, I'd rather have it in person.
Oh, we're streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's already a flash drive. So,
Where's that stool?
is yours work?
Yes.
Okay, I'll put them together.
We tried the.
Yeah.
Ah, fuck.
Sure. What now? Audio. I know. Yeah, Niles. Well, they have a copy.
I have a shirt.
My Mongo DD backpack went.
Over there. By where I was sitting. What is going on here? I got like 3/4 of this.
Alright.
It's on the flash list. Usually office and then it's.
I'm not sure I can do anything about that.
Well, I mean,
Hang on.
now
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah,
Now I'm missing.
I feel like
I think it's fine.
Is this like a Zoom on the
Put
projector?
it on there.
Well, it's. I mean, that's the edge of the projector.
all right. This is supposedly on a power. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm
You got
gonna
a new problem now.
I have it right there.
yes, and I'm gonna take.
I mean,
and go see how my settings
Oh,
got really
yeah,
So we're
yeah.
going. I'm gonna put it
This
on
is the issue I'm having. What am I doing wrong that my display is not? It's not acknowledging that I can even modify my display. It's okay.
No, hi, we're gonna. Yeah. Sure. That's what we're doing.
oh, you change your resolution. Okay. Oh, geez.
Yeah. Presentations are hard. My last presentation, I almost bombed it because I didn't know that the reverb and demo was working. I tried to figure out that you eliminate the background, the reverb. That was the hardest presentation. All right.
That works, I guess.
Yeah. If I do.
Okay, it's on.
Good enough.
You have it saved. Just have this as a separate desktop.
Can you do something where so I can see the top of your screen?
So I'm like,
Oh, ejected. Oh no, this is plugged in. So we know where that's going.
Is that see the sort of yeah? Well,
Enough.
all right. Don't put anything up too high.
Well, I mean, it thinks this is the top of my screen anyway, so it's fine.
Slideshow.
All right.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for your patience. We're gonna get started now.
Allow me.
Our talk.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello. So my name is Heather White. Most people call me Weasel, and talk is about a curious thing that happened to me the other day. So I have this flask app, and it's not terribly complicated. Basically, we've got one endpoint.
Bigger.
It's a, oh, you want the text? Let's see. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. 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 So this isn't a terribly complicated Flask app. We've got one endpoint. It basically acts as a proxy. It copies the args and the request body over, refers it to some other server that doesn't want to be publicly available. And we just assume that it just transparently more or less does its thing. So I've also got some tests because I write tests, don't you? My test here, basically, we patch the session because we don't want any IO. We find a payload, and then we use the test client to make a request, and then we assert that we get a result. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's see what happens when we run it. That's a pretty big explosion for a very small unit test. So let's see what happened. So this blew up when we were patching the session. So specifically, the error occurred in unit test mock. And this is a very long. So what happened is attribute error, property session of my proxy client object. Well, it's cut off, but let's actually zoom out a little bit just so we can read it. Has no setter. Oh, and another error occurred at the same time. This one, while mock was undoing the patch, saying property session of my proxy client object has no deleter. So what's going on in this proxy client? Okay, this is pretty straightforward. We got a class that has one, well, it has a method decorated with a property, or a decorator, so it behaves as a property, that stores a session, and doesn't look like we're doing anything too terribly nefarious. We've set an adapter to define how many times we retry and manage the pool size. Specifically, when used for HTTPS. That's nothing particularly strange. So specifically, this here is kind of telling about what's going on. What do we know about properties? Other than we use them all the time to put things that we need frequently. I mean, you put an at property decorator on a method and it behaves like an attribute. Do we know why that is? Well, properties are a high-level implementation of descriptors. So what that means in a nutshell is this error message is accurate because unless you define them, calling set or delete on property is going to raise an attribute error because get has been overwritten, so it retrieves and creates the session. There's no way to delete it defined. So there is no dunder set, dunder delete. Okay, so we know that we can't write to a property other than by calling get. Maybe we need to take a little more look at what descriptors are to understand why that's going on. So essentially, if we define a method on an attribute that's in the descriptor protocol, so that's dunder get, dunder set, or dunder delete, we modify behavior of that attribute. And that's essentially a descriptor. Reasons you want to do this is, well, you're defining an API and you want to control access. The Django base classes that blow up if you try to instantiate them, that's a good place to find descriptors. But the use I specifically want to look at is Python method binding. So Python objects have an instance dictionary, and dictionary contains a list of names and the object's attributes. And when you retrieve something from the instance dictionary, you're essentially calling dunder get attribute. The way this behaves depends on whether get attribute inherited from object or type. One way will include the instance, the other way will include the class. So what is a function, essentially? It's an object. And what is a method? Well, a method is basically a function that has a reference to an object by showing up in that object's instance dictionary. So the default behavior of any of these things is that if I call a function, it's going to, if I call a method, it will execute the method same as a function. But in our property example, it acts like an attribute. So that's great, unless you define a thing called slots, where we replace the instance dictionary with a fixed length list of attributes, and these are the only attributes allowed in the class, other than methods. Let's have a look at that. So here's a simple example of a class that's defined as immutable. I'm going to get rid of these for now. So these are just regular methods. So we've said that name, description are the only attributes allowed on this class. Let's see what happens if we run this. Actually,
Bottom of the screen.
let's try this now. So This is a read-only attribute. Of course, it's also just a regular function right now. So we don't get an error if we don't try to assign directly to it. Now, we also saw, I printed the I called dir on doom.desc here. And these are all of the attributes that the attribute desc actually has. That's not a very long list. Well, let's see what happens if I change it into a property. We've got a lot of different attributes on this, assigned to this attribute now. Specifically, we can see that we got index is all num, is all alpha, is alpha. So essentially now this is a string. But we've also got, let's clear my screen again. We've also got an attribute error that it has no setter. So I feel like I've talked kind of fast and I've just gone over a lot of internal guts of objects. Yes, let's do questions, Steve. Oh, so that is the default behavior of an attribute. In this case, I overrode it to be a property. And so properties are, the behavior of properties is what we just saw. So to go back to my original example, when I run my test, because I patched, I tried to patch the session property. Now, if I said session.post, that would be fine. But I patched .session, and so since session is the only way you can write to the session property is to call get. So if I say client.session, then if it's not set to anything, it gets set to the value of a request session. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's true, Python doesn't have getters and setters, but properties do.
So back to your original PyTest, did you have to create a getter delete a get, or so you can get the test to run?
No. The situation where I ran into this initially, I went and patched the post method on the session. And of course, this is a stripped down version of that.
I've never seen like a code just built out like that during During it there. Is that like because of the smell?
No, this is the most recent. This is what happened. I just had installed or pip installed PyTest with I'm on 3.11, so it's the most recent version of PyTest. It usually gives you the method. I think because it blew up at a relatively low level, we're getting all of that. All right.
While you were doing this, I did reinstall the settings on the system that mysteriously disappeared. Supposedly, if I just plug this in now, I should have the ability to mirror the screen. So I am going to try this first. The reason it wasn't working before is because it was not connected to the internet. So thus, it was not even.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I didn't.
So,
I didn't know
okay.
if you wanted
But
to.
do I want? I mean, I don't. It doesn't matter. Let's see if it's going to let me do this. So now though.
Well, we have to change it.
Right. Well, did I? Okay. Here we go. Now we have a 1. So, hold on. Yeah. Well,
Okay, we can see something.
hold on. This is definitely all right. Not
Just
mine
click
though.
mirror.
Oh, this is your system though, not mine.
No,
Nope, that's yours. This is mine.
this is the other screen, I think.
Yeah, move
Yeah.
your screen. That's yours.
Thanks. We had this open a moment ago.
This.
Fine. Oh. I think it just does not.
Oh, yeah. Open menu.
I'm just gonna have to do it off of his. It's not gonna work on this one, I don't think. It's not gonna work on this one. Where did Jimmy go? Yeah, I mean, something, yeah, when I did that, something else happened, so we're just gonna do it off yours. It's got settings now, but look, here's what you guys are showing, like this one, so. I don't understand why this one. Yeah, it's like.
So now you're sharing.
Oh.
Has anyone worked with Pandas 2 yet? It just got released. I think it's one of the big changes was it's Pi arrow backed rather than. I mean, you can back it with different things other than just NumPy. But I was wondering if anyone used it yet.
Stream and it's good.
Yeah.
Oh, is
Oh,
it-
thanks. Don't. Yeah, it's streaming, so I think it's just.
I'm connecting it to this guy. Do I just change the source?
Are you using your computer to?
I know yours.
We're using yours.
Is
I
that
got
right?
hers. This one is working.
Yeah, I'm gonna-
We could just use like go straight into there. I'm not too worried about the stream.
It's going off of mine.
Oh,
Yeah. But so can we? Is it all right if we connect it to this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be.
So which one is this one? Is it HDMI?
Let's see. Source.
Sorry.
Oh, it's not plugged in. That's why.
Plug her in.
Other side.
Other side. Got it. Sweet.
Yeah. Cool.
If anyone knows AV stuff too, he already sounds like somebody needs some AV help.
Hello. Can everybody hear me? All right. Sorry about all the delay there. I am going to be speaking about an open source peer review exam prep system using Anki flashcards that I have been developing with professors and students at various public universities in Illinois, with the intent for this software to eventually be open source and available to students across the country. This software is based on a social media platform example. This is a platform that allows students and professors to submit and anonymously peer review each other's posts. The posts then become a custom Anki flashcard deck. I don't know if anyone here has heard of the Anki system before. Has anyone heard of Anki? Okay, if you haven't heard of it, Anki is actually the top recommended flashcard study system used by professional students, mainly law students and medical students, in order to study for their professional exams. Now, Anki is a program that's based on these things called active recall testing and spaced repetition. And this can technically be used for any class or subject, not just for professional students. However, currently the Anki system is not very user-friendly. To start with, any student who wants to use it must install the system. And even if you are using it on a Windows system, there are still many barriers for students to be able to access this technology. In order to create flashcards, currently students have to go on and fill out a front and back of card form, and they are able to attach video, images. However, this is something that students who do not have a background in technology are either scared away from, or they see it as confusing, complicated, and time-consuming. Because of this, I was approached to ask if I might help develop a program that students could use in order to help them automate the Anki flashcard making process. So in order to do this, I first had to figure out what would be the best way to approach this problem. We decided to use Python and Django to develop the social media type platform. This platform was developed over the last few months as one of my ongoing projects. However, this project specifically is the one that I am the most passionate about, given that I formerly was an attorney for non-for-profits, and currently with the work I'm doing, I'm able to incorporate my background as an attorney, as well as my passion for Python in helping students and professors to be able to access this amazing system. The application I made is built with Django, which is a high-level Python web framework, providing a rich set of tools and libraries for building sites. Django follows the model view controller architectural pattern. This provides a separation of concerns between different components of the application. This application consists of several components, including the user authentication system, the post-submission and peer review system, and ultimately the Anki flashcard deck generation system, which is the most unique part of this site. These components are implemented using Django's built-in models, views, and templates, as well as third-party libraries, such as Django All-Auth, CSV, and GenAnki. The database schema for this application is designed using Django's object relational mapping. I apologize for the mic, you guys. Object relational mapping system, which provides a convenient way to define data models using Python classes. The data models here are defined using Django's built-in features, such as char field, text field, and foreign keys. The database used for the application is currently being developed. However, it is going to be set up in order to store all the posts made by the admin, who in this example would be a professor, in a CSV file in text format in this Django app using Django's signals framework. Here I needed to define a signal receiver function that triggers whenever a new post is created by the admin user. That would be the professor, and then use Python CSV library to write the post data to a CSV file. Again, this way, every time the admin user creates a new card on their feed, this post data will automatically be added to the file. Ultimately, this application will then take the text format data stored and turn it into a deck of Anki cards. This involved using two libraries, CSV and GenAnki. In the text format file, we would have the front and back text for each of our cards. This is separated by a comma. You can then use the CSV library to read in this file and extract the necessary data in order to make the Anki cards. Using the GenAnki library, we can create an Anki deck object. This object represents the deck that I'd be creating then, and you would need to add all of the cards to it through this process. I'll come back to this in a minute, as it's actually still part of the application that is under development. In order to ensure the security of this application, I also implemented several measures, including input validation, user authentication, password hashing. I also used Django's built-in CSRF protection to prevent cross-site forgery request attacks. All right. Now, the challenges with this project, during the development of this application, the first thing I faced was trying to find the best platform in order to implement the functionality the school is looking for. Ultimately, I realized that something as simple as a very basic social media type platform actually provided the framework needed in order to accomplish the project goals that they were seeking. However, I had to look at this carefully to make sure that it also included the other aspects that they were looking for. The second challenge that I faced here was implementing user authentication using Django All-Auth. I had not worked extensively with this before, so for me, working on this project as a single developer, this became a challenge. However, I spent a lot of time reading documentation, experimenting with my program, and testing the implementation to ensure that it was actually functioning and meeting the school's needs. The third challenge I faced was the best way to turn the posts into flashcards. Right now, it seems that the CSV library is the best way to accomplish this. However, as this part is still under development, I am still open to suggestions and actively working on this section, improving this section. Overall, these challenges have required me to think creatively and work to find the best solutions for this project. I'm confident that working with the students, it will be worth all of the time and effort. In the future, this project is still going to need to have comprehensive tests written in order to ensure that it's going to be reliable and functioning for its intended users. As far as writing tests, this is something which I do not have much experience with. However, I'm looking forward to practicing on this application and spending even more time than I already have on testing to ensure that it is robust and reliable in the end. I have my ChiPy mentor, Weasel, who I am hoping to engage in this process at that point, and I look forward to taking more of Weasel's time, helping me to better understand working with Python. As far as the deck creation aspect, this still needs to be completed for each card, and going forward, I'm going to be using GenAnki note objects in order to appropriately format these cards with the front and back text, and then add it to the deck object. I'm going to need to define a GenAnki model object that then will specify the note type for these cards. And then with that, I will use it when I create the note object itself. Then I can use the GenAnki package method to package the deck into a .apkg file. And this is the format that Anki uses then to import their cards. And at this point, this is where a lot of decks are available online that if you know how to use this, you are able to access. However, due to, again, the confusion that a lot of students face when trying to use this, even the available decks right now are not easily turned into flashcards that students can practice with if they don't have some tech familiarity. Looking into the future, I am excited about the potential of this application to change the way that students and professors interact in the classroom with Anki. Other professors I have interacted with and spoken with about this software are very excited about the potential for using this with their students. I believe this platform has the potential to make the learning process more engaging, collaborative, and effective, but most of all, more user-friendly for students who are not already tech-savvy. I look forward to continuing to develop this application and exploring new ways that can be used to benefit, that Anki can be used to benefit students and educators alike. In conclusion here, we have been discussing the development of a social media type platform that is being used to allow students and professors to submit and anonymously peer review each other's posts, which will then be turned into custom Anki flashcard decks for the class. I've covered the basic structure of my application, and looking ahead, I plan to deploy this application, write tests, and ultimately involve another developer for polishing up the front end. I'm very excited about the potential for this application, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to listen to this presentation. If any of you have interest in working with this project as it becomes open source over the next few months, please speak with me, as I know that the professors I am working with would love to have other Python enthusiasts assisting with this project for the students. Thank you so much.
Great. Awesome. Hey everyone, can you hear me? Oh, to the shirt? Okay. To the shirt. Is that better? Okay. All right. So, hi, I'm Jimmy Scray. I'm giving a presentation about transcribing human gestures. Kind of a new area. It's kind of fun. I like it. I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to dive right in. So it's using MediaPipe, Python, and data, of course.
Can you use the mic or talk louder?
Oh, am I not?
To your face.
Sorry. How's this?
Put on
Is
your put on your collar.
this collar? Okay, collar. Okay. Not enough testing. Not enough test cases. Right. Okay. So is that better? Cool. Great. So yeah, diving right into it, what we're going to talk about is the why and the who. Always start with the why, figure out, should I be there? So the team, just, the group of us doing stuff, our goals, how, so this is the fun part, diving into MediaPipe's library. I'm not going to dive too far into that because that's in development and kind of outside of my hands, but I'll go over the architecture we want and just how the outputs are consumed. I'm going to go over the transcription process, which we actually wrote, the American Sign Language, how we're plugging it into American Sign Language, how we're web crawling American Sign Language's website and grabbing those resources and using that as a base point for all of our gestures. And then more fun stuff, kind of going over the next steps of data normalizing. So figuring out how to actually use that data in a reliable format, data smoothing, which is also part of that, and just it being all open source. So starting off with the why, I really wanted to get closer to computers. Like we all use it every day, but like there's a lot of improvement for us interacting with our computers. Like we use the keyboard and mouse. I think that's inefficient. I think I'd like it if it just read my thoughts, but that's not possible. So the next closest thing is gestures, at least in my mind, where we do something like American Sign Language, and then the computer understands us, writes it into text, and then is able to do whatever it does, which does a lot. But so that's kind of it in a nutshell. I figured a good place to start would be with American Sign Language, because gestures there are just, it's a good place. And of course, to build cool stuff. So who are we? The whole entire idea here is to establish some credibility. So Jimmy, me, I started this. I have 10 years dev experience, BS and CS. There's Pablo, head dreamer, 10 years product management experience, MBA. AJ, 11 years, BS and CS. Simran, front of house magician, front end engineer, 15 years front end experience. And we've only been doing this for like 2-3 weeks, so it's very, very, very new. But I'm going to go over all the steps in the process. So the transcription process, which is using MediaPipe's neural net library to translate and to figure out from using a webcam XYZ coordinates. So you can see that on the bottom left right there. That's coming straight from MediaPipe. We're going to go over a demo of it actually doing that. But it gives you all those points. It's fairly reliable. There's a little bit of a shake, but that's the fun in developing stuff, just figuring it out. So step 2 is gathering the data. So we built a web crawler to go through all the stuff. I figured I should show it because it's Python. Why not? And then storage, TBD, Redis maybe. We're not at the scale of Redis, probably just a dictionary for right now. But normalizing the data. So this is where we're still figuring it out. We're thinking angles in 2-dimensional space because that's an easy way to normalize like a big hand from a small hand. You don't have to train that data. If you normalize it, you can create a tree, create like a lookup, and then you're good to go. And then 4 is building cool stuff. So maybe movements as vectors, maybe a platform, because all of these gestures are not subjective. It's the other word that I'm looking for, but it's everybody has a different idea of what a gesture actually means and what like a tag to it. So you need a platform to manage all of that data, like a CRM. So yeah, some of the use cases, still figuring it out. Can y'all hear me still? Okay. So here's the transcription process. I'm actually just going to exit this and then just go straight to it. So bear with me for a second. So here is the transcription stuff. So I'm going to load that up now, and we're just going to go through it. So you look.
You're real big.
I'm really big? Okay. How's this?
Keep going.
Keep going? Wow, that's like way too much. That's all right? Okay. All right. So here we're loading up our libraries. We're just kind of initializing everything. We're figuring out what we want to capture. So this comes straight from American Sign Language's website. We're creating our headers for our CSV files. Then we're actually initializing the MediaPipe library. So MP for MediaPipe. And here are all the arguments that we pass into it. So smoothing landmarks, all of this is important. And MediaPipe's documentation goes over that pretty extensively. I'm not going to jump into that. Because I don't know, that can take a lot of time. I want to go more over the use case of it and not so much the specifics of the platform, because I think the platform is still kind of like a moving car. I don't want to mess with the moving car until it parks. So, all right, and then so the next steps here, we just basically like initialize the library, and then we start transcribing our actual video. And then if there are pose landmarks, because this library takes every single pose, so like it can take your face, it could take your hand, it could take like all of your body parts, and then figure out what that actually looks like. Then we just write it to the CSV. So here we're constructing the string, the right hand, the left hand. These are like separate pose structures that are within the library. Then we do some drawing. That's just to show you kind of what's going on. We're not actually using that. But yeah, so let's do it. Let's just show you how it works. So here, transcribe. So Python, via pipe. And then it's going to load up a video. Well, it should. Here we go. So that's what it's doing. All of those points are transcribed. And if you missed it, I mean, all of this is open source, so you can go and like see what you like about it. So that's the CSV, XYZ coordinates, figuring out the angle coordinates next to kind of normalize that data. But yeah, so that's script one. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go over the architecture of MediaPipe a little bit. So MediaPipe uses a lot of different ML frameworks. So TensorFlow, OpenCV for like regression analysis, TensorFlow for more like GPU, like tensors is what they're called. They're really just nodes that filter to one another and like a neural net library. So all of this is very, very useful to figure out what the pose is, normalized to like an X, Y, Z coordinates. And then I'm just ingesting that data, taking that, writing it to a CSV, and then normalizing that data to create a dictionary to look up gestures. So that's that for that. Now onto the web crawling process. So this part is just like iterating through Handspeak's website to figure out like all the titles, because that's going to be used as a basis point for all our gestures, and then grabbing the video that we want. So a couple libraries there, we use requests and Beautiful Soup. So pretty straightforward requests, just makes the request, and then Beautiful Soup parses the HTML so that we can grab the title and the video location. So you can see right there, not too complicated. And then the fun part, because this is what we're trying to figure out. So the data normalization piece. So we have our points. I figure like 0 through 20. If I put up my hand like this like means B and this means A. So it's like A, and then you have a bunch of coordinates and angles that correspond to this. And so the angles make it so that I can recognize this gesture in anybody else's hand. It doesn't matter like what type of hand you have, like I'm gonna know that this is A. So that's kind of what's going on. And it's fun so far. So, yeah, thank you. Oh, questions? Yes.
Is there a way, so would it be simplest if I wanted, like, let's say I have like a recording of like the MediaPipe process, how would I replay what it sees again?
How would you replay? So the question is like, how would you replay?
Because there's another library that uses it, that like does like YouTube stuff, but I want to replay like gestures on something that interfaces to MediaPipe.
Yeah, that's a good question. So like the transcription process would probably, I'm just theorizing and speculating, but once it's transcribed to XYZ coordinates, then you can put that into, I don't know, like a 3D rendering tool like Sketch Lab or something.
When you say that, you say this. Okay.
Yep.
How does your recognition do it? You have to parse it into individual gestures. And the people I've seen talking to ASL goes really fast. You don't know where one starts and the next one starts.
Yeah, so I'm just going to repeat the question, which is like ASL is like so fast that it's hard to figure out where one gesture starts and one gesture ends. That's kind of like, I've thought of that. It's kind of like speech or NLP, speech analysis, like when does one sentence start and when does one sentence end. I feel that that's kind of where a platform would come in, because you could be halfway through a gesture and then halfway through another gesture, and then the halfway point of the first gesture and the midway point to the second gesture actually is another gesture. And so that would be like, maybe it's part of the platform where it says it needs to be one after the other, or I don't know. But
maybe a way that you could, like, you know that the output is going to be eventually a word. You have maybe the possibility of mistakes, but you could just like autocomplete or like, you know, spell check it, similar to like an iPhone keyboard that actually does spell checking, but to make it accurate, like GPT might be.
yeah, so there's a solution already. Like we
Spell
could
checking.
like have like spell checking.
It's like you know, if you miss an A, something.
Yeah.
But Python needs a lot.
Yeah, totally. Cool.
That first script that you showed, that's downloading or scraping a video file from the ASL website, and then you're the one that's adding the line geometry to that. Okay, so that's good.
Yep. Yeah. So just scraping the video from the website, running it through MediaPipe, and then it creates like a CSV of timestamps to XYZ coordinates.
So media pipe takes the video image, transcribes it into a set of vector coordinates in a two-dimensional space. Right?
Actually, three-dimensional, because we have the Z coordinate as well.
So, but how does it? Okay, so there is they actually do have, I guess, the media pipe. I guess changes in the shadows, the gradients. We assume that's
Yeah. 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 And I'd imagine it's probably very in development as well. So it's very custom rules and things like that. Maybe even like if you train in like a different type of room, then you're going to get different results and you're going to have a completely different model. So
with the media pipes, you have the training data is already applied to state.
yeah.
Training on just human hands, or just generic space, like objects in space.
Yeah, so MediaPipe has a lot of different use or like training models that you can tap into. So like object detection, so gate detection, so like facial detection, all of that is available there. It's evolving. I'm kind of I don't pin my libraries all the time, so I'm just grabbing the most recent model and then using that. But it's all in development right now, so. Oh, yeah. So the web crawler is just to aggregate the American Sign Language data, because I figure it's a good place to start. Just have a bunch of poses with XYZ coordinates, and then build a dictionary from that, and then maybe teach myself a little bit of like American Sign Language. So.
Do you like the website? Does it have like a lot of different training examples, or do you need to still farm that out from somewhere else?
So the question is like, does MediaPipe have a bunch of training examples?
The like the website, the ESL website, because like if you're just seeing like one user's representation of the letter A, let's say, is that enough to be able to get the full model? Or
good question. I figure that's so. The question was like, is one person's representation of a gesture really like all encompassing of a full model? I would say definitely not. That's where a platform comes in, and like we have to fine tune these things because like the angle like this could be B, but this could be something completely different, and like that's kind of hard to say. But just through experimentation, I figure we're gonna figure these things out. So.
Are you fine-tuning the media pipe model or just using the?
Right now, I'm just outside of MediaPipe. So MediaPipe's like machine learning models kind of give us an output that we can use in XYZ or like just a transcribed like version of the gesture. I figure it doesn't need to be that close to when we're like training and when we have like a trained model or predicting, because it's kind of independent of that, and it's also very like nebulous. We don't know what this gesture is really going to look like. We don't want to hard code it into the model. But good question. I'm sorry, I missed that. Definitely, yeah. So there's a set of documentation docs that say that instruct us how to create our own model. I guess we could go that route of like retraining things and saying like, how do we train a model to recognize like A. It's for me, it's a little bit risky there because it's not as finite. Like if we have a dictionary that's normalized and it's just a lookup table, we know for a fact when we transcribe it like this, we're gonna have A plus B equals C. Right, rather than with like machine learning, it's more experimentation. We have to figure out like the statistical methods or like the neural nets to figure it out.
The dictionary that you are trying to write, is it on a character level or lower or basis? So I'm trying to bring the state addiction of the word or usually of the common words or keywords, or are you building based on characters and then trying to build the word based on that?
Yeah, good question. I figure a good starting point would just be like through Z, because those are good gestures. Also, most of those gestures aren't movement based. There's two of them that are movement based, Z and then J. So those will be a challenge, but yeah, it's like taking a lot and going for like a very little effort. So narrowing scope as much as possible.
Can you comment more on why you think it's easier to start with finger spelling than it is with like full gesture groups?
Yeah, and so finger spelling to me, because it's a two-dimensional space and it doesn't include movement. And movement, you have to kind of capture where the gesture is first in order to kind of figure out that whole entire process. So once we start with a gesture and we can transcribe that consistently, then I figure the movement kind of comes second, where what direction are our limbs headed? How do our limbs move? Like, are there restrictions in this? I can't exactly move this elbow backwards when it's that. So that might be something that I could bake into the model or something. But yeah, still working on that. It may be easier if we go the training route as well. So. Any more questions? Oh.
You were saying it was evolving. Are you planning to do gestures that aren't like ASL or even explicitly defined in the names of the model? Like, does this independently define this in a demonstration?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So like, to be or not to be, the gesture. Yeah, different things like, right. Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to build a platform that could do like recognize this as a gesture, and then we use that in other places. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
And thank you. Thanks for joining us. That's ChiPy. Thanks for bearing with us with the technical issues. But hope you had a good time. Thanks again to our sponsors, or to Coke for hosting us, and for all of our speakers for being here and talking to us. So, see you.